In the HD universe, Rockstar introduced to their games situations in which a player can choose what a protagonist will do. Granted, we won't find a lot of them in GTA 5, and the few that we will find are mainly in side missions. But in GTA 4, well, there's a whole freaking lot of them. And it's a really cool thing. It's always nice to have a chat about which choice was the right one and why. And trust me, GTA 4 will provide us with many topics for such discussions. Some choices are simply very tricky and will give us a proper dilemma. It's also hard to tell which choice will be good for Nico himself and what he would do in a given case. We also have to consider whether Nico won't face any tragic consequences. So for example, if a person we decide to spare ain't gonna happily stick a knife between Nico's eyes later on. Some other choices are difficult because any decision we make is neither good or bad. Take the mission Blood Brothers for instance, in which Nico has to decide whether to kill Francis McCreary or Derek McCreary. Many players are going on and on about how crucial this is. In reality though, both brothers are scumbags. Whoever we cap, it ain't gonna make a big difference. In fact, the best Nico could do is to whack both of those pricks. And not even that, cause killing either Francis and Derek is also not a nice move, really. Why? It's because Nico was on good terms with Packy, and it's not very friendly to kill off your buddy's siblings. An example of a difficult choice is killing Ivan for Vlad. On the one hand, Ivan is shouting to Nico that Vladdy boy set him up, and quite convincingly as well.
Vlad told me to go there!
On the other hand, Ivan allegedly wanted to rob Roman. It's a bit weird cause, let's be fair, what was there to steal off Roman? A pair of stinking socks or an ancient computer? Well, if you're lucky, maybe you could get across some good porn tapes at best. But later, Nico actually sees Ivan stirring something up at Roman's depot and then desperately trying to escape, as if he was actually guilty. However, a tip-off from Vlad shouldn't be blindly believed, especially since Vlad wanted Ivan dead because he pissed off Faustin, from whom Vlad was taking orders. Additionally, there was nothing Ivan could steal off Roman. Plus, all this shouting that this Russian jerk just wanted to screw Ivan over. Apart from that, there are also moments where a player can only watch what Nico will decide, and sometimes Nico could do with some advice, to put it mildly. For instance, in the mission called Final Destination, a lunatic with a drug problem, namely Faustin, orders Nico to kill a son of one of the Hove Beach big fishes. Nico just goes and does it, even though he can clearly see from Dimitri's reaction that it's not such a great idea. And of course, soon enough, it turned out pretty badly for everyone involved. Rockstar really put an abundance of such choices to GTA 4. The cool thing is that we'll also find the easy ones, like in the mission Rough Rider, in which we decide the fate of Dwayne's ex-girlfriend. Yes, I know that was a hell of an introduction, but it was needed. I mean, I think it was anyway. Either way, as the first choice that we'll talk about today, I put the mission Uncle Vlad. It's an example of a choice on which a player has no influence. As the title hints, in this mission, Nico kills his uncle, namely Vladdy boy. Nah, I'm kidding. It wasn't his uncle, but the relationship between these two was truly like that of a family.
Who was that?
Never you mind.
Was it Ivan?
Ooh, that's funny. You know, for a dumb yokel, you're a very funny guy.
Yes, and for an annoying dick, you're really an annoying dick.
Yeah, anyway, so basically Nico was running errands for Vlad because his cousin owed him money, just like he did to every Russian, Albanian, and every other douchebag on the East Coast. Well, he had to get money from somewhere, right? So then he can throw it all away on these shady gambling websites. Well, never mind that. At some point, Vlad's gone too far. It turned out that apparently he was spending passionate nights with Roman's beloved Mallory. So Nico, along with his cousin, headed straight to Vlad's favorite bar to explain the situation. Vladdy obviously completely disregarded what Nico was saying to him. He told his goons to teach them a lesson while he himself fled the scene. After a short chase, during which Roman was begging Nico to take a moment to think and leave Vlad in peace, Nico fitted Vlad with a new asshole and took him on a swimming lesson in the river. This is that one and only moment in the game in which Roman was actually right to let this bald scumbag live. Vlad, despite being an arrogant jerk, had powerful friends. And yes, Faustin let him work for him only because he loved to play with Vlad's sister's titties.
Idiot. The only reason I keep him around is because I f*** sister.
However, Nico did not know that at the time. Nico and Roman were just some next losers living in a shabby apartment, with no connections and multiple debts to clear. Nico and Roman simply meant nothing. Despite that, Nico decided on killing a guy that had powerful connections. There was a solid chance that the Russians will track down the Bellic cousins and skin them alive. Fortunately for them, as we remember, the latter thankfully never took place and no one got hurt. Unless you count the fact that Roman got shot in the stomach because he wouldn't keep his mouth shut, and after he was shitting in diapers for the next 2 weeks. But, yeah, it could have been worse.
If you're near a shop, can you pick up some adult diapers for me? See you later, Nico.
To summarize, it was a proper fustercluck by Nico that we, as players, couldn't do much about. Going further, we've got the mission, The Master and the Molotov, which alongside the mission Russian Revolution, makes up a turning point in the game's story. In this mission, Nico kills the ever pissed off Faustin, who was using him to do his dirty work because he killed Vladdy, as mentioned before. Faustin at that time was feeding lead to everyone who so much as looked at him wrong. He was making hasty decisions and a lot of unnecessary noise. One of the foolish decisions of his was sending Nico to kill Petrovich's son, Lenny. Petrovich was a serious gangster and it was rather unwise to mess with him. Faustin wanted to kill his son because he thought he was a snitch, and it was because of him that he and Dmitri had problems with the cops. Anyway, after Nico booked his ass, it obviously enraged Petrovich, who said that if Nico doesn't kill Faustin as a compensation, he'll share Lenny's fate. This marvelous piece of news was brought to Nico by Dmitri. Nico, convinced that there is no other way, decides to kill Faustin. In this case, a player also has no choice but to accept Nico's decision. So let's pose a question here. Did Nico make the right call? Well, not quite. First of all, Dmitri could have just made up this whole story about Petrovich's blackmail in order to use Nico to kill Faustin, so he can take over his business. Second of all, Nico could clearly see that Dmitri wants to screw over his friend to whom he owes a lot. It's plainly displayed to Nico that Dmitri is capable of backstabbing even his best friend. It should be obvious to Nico that sooner or later, it'll be him whom Dmitri will set up if he's no longer useful to him. And of course, that's exactly what happens later in the game. Besides, it's hard to believe that Petrovich wouldn't just want to hunt down everyone involved in the murder of his son. Either Faustin and Dmitri and Nico. But well, who knows with these psycho gangsters. However, Nico could have just stayed loyal to Faustin, thereby gaining protection from Petrovich. Even assuming that Dmitri didn't chat rubbish with all that blackmail and that Petrovich will want to get Nico if he doesn't kill Faustin. Despite the fact that Mikhail was a lunatic, his gang was powerful. They had a lot of influence and many members who looked after each other. We can say that when Nico gets attacked in Hove Beach during the part of the story in which we're working for Faustin, then any Russians in the area will immediately run to mash up any rude boy that dared to lay their finger on the protagonist. So as you can see, even despite that Mikhail was a complete maniac that was on a good way to put the skids on his organization, killing him, especially for such a backstabbing prick as Dmitri, was not the greatest of ideas. Next in line, we've got the mission, The Holland Play. And I reckon you may be a bit surprised with my take on this. So in GTA 4, we've got the opportunity to meet and work for a certain gangster, Playboy X, that wants to earn money illegally to then spend it on good causes. During the story, a good old homie of Playboy, Dwayne, gets out of jail. Playboy welcomes him properly, what's mine is yours stuff and all that. But Dwayne is not happy because he apparently doesn't like the way Playboy operates or something. He's been chatting some rubbish on Playboy on the streets. He was messing with his business and nagging like Catalina on her period. Eventually, Playboy found out about all this and he came up with a fantastic solution to kill Dwayne. He asks Nico to do it, who says he has to think this through. Nico also receives a call from Dwayne, who merely thinks that Playboy wants to kill him, so he asks Nico to cap Playboy. Oh my god, what a pair. Almost as good to each other as Vladdy and Nico. And now, we, as players, have to choose what Nico will do. So which moron he'll kill. And in my opinion, it's a dumb decision by Nico to even get involved in that mess at all. There should be like a third option here to ignore this kindergarten stuff and let these kids sort it out amongst themselves. I mean, Nico has no beef with either of these two. So let the homies for life sort out this mess on their own. especially that they consider themselves as tough gangsters. What a circus. Now, let's look at the mission Holland Knights, given to us by Francis, who we already mentioned in the introduction. So now we've got Mr.
I'm a good guy!
Oh yeah, a true saint. The policeman wants Nico to get rid of some naughty gangster, Clarence Little. I don't know whether his surname has anything to do with the size of his genitals, but what I do know is that this guy, as opposed to Francis obviously, wasn't exactly a saint. So Francis, because he was too lazy to collect evidence on Clarence, asks Nico to cap him and solve this problem quickly. The game gives us a choice here. We can either indeed put Clarence to bed or let him go, believing that he'll reform. See, a guy that's been a thug since his early days promises to Nico that he'll change, that every Sunday he'll be going to church with his granny, and that he won't be shooting people no more, and that he'll be a good guy, just like Francis. So if we spare him, we'll quickly regret our decision. This dude will later try to kill us if he finds us hanging around in Northwood. So yeah, people can change, but come on. This guy was born with the finger on the trigger, and all he did his whole life was push drugs on the street corners. So I'm sorry, but the chance that he would actually do as promised was almost non-existent. And of course, this episode wouldn't run without that one decision that we have to make at the end of the game. The moment when we have to choose whether to go work with Dmitry Raskolov again. Yes, that same Dmitry that screwed us and everyone he ever worked with over. The second option is just to go to the platypus ship where he was hiding and deal with him once and for all. And obviously, the latter option seems like an obvious choice. But as always, there is a catch. Pegorino ensures Nico that if he agrees to work with Dmitry, he'll be highly rewarded. Roman, after he hears about this, gets super excited and he wants Nico to do this deal, which makes this choice a really hard one. But actually, like, come on! Agreeing to work with Dmitry again is ridiculous. Like, this guy is literally obsessed with betraying everyone he gets in any sort of business partnership with. And Nico knew all about it. It was obvious that he'll play dirty yet again. Plus, agreeing to the deal with Dmitry means the end of the relationship with Kate, a woman who Nico loved. The reasons for which we absolutely should not agree to work with Dmitry are endless. In fact, the stuff that goes down after we agree to do this deal speaks for itself. Dmitry screws us over again. Wow, what did you look at that? What an unexpected turn of events. Furthermore, he sends a hitman to cap Nico that accidentally kills Roman. And on top of that, Kate doesn't want to talk to Nico anymore because he sold his morals like a cheap rag on eBay. It would be nice if you wrote in the comments whether you agree with my opinions on today's discussed choices. A video on why Nico didn't seek revenge on one of his demons of the past is displayed for you on the screen right now. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye. Take care and see you soon.